Bates Motel Season 5, Episode 9, Visiting Hours. Now, this, unfortunately, is the penultimate episode of the entire series. Next week is the series finale, but it was a really good episode. Of course, it started off kind of normal, it was just all the drama, but things just constantly built up throughout this entire episode, leading to that ending. And as things go through, it's a lot of the family dynamics. Of course, we have Emma coming into town to try to help out Dylan and support him as he goes through, just this back and forth craziness that he's dealing with. She, of course, finds out that her mother was actually murdered. Of course, Dylan says, like, I'm pretty sure, like, I know it was Norman. So she has to go through that process. I was surprised that, but closer to the end of the episode, she actually went to see Norman, and she knew that it wasn't him that she was talking to, and I actually really liked that scene for it. But they go through the trial, and Norman's lawyer is like, hey, I really think you should be there in court to kind of show support to your brother, because odds are this is going to end up going to trial. So it might help a little to have that image where you actually support your own brother. And it was just like the torture that everyone feels in this show finally catching up to them. Like, because it was always there, but they didn't really know it was there. And everything Norman had done, or, his, mother was doing, it's all finally catching up to both of them, really. And it was very interesting to watch it play out like that, where they go through the process of showing these dead bodies and showing these people, and how it affects Emma, how it affects Dylan as this man who's now in love with a woman who his brother killed her mother, just all that craziness. And then, of course, Madeline, where it's like, she sees, even though he was a cheater, still, her husband who was murdered. And it was just crazy. It's like all the death and just all that crazy chaos is now finally truly seeping into all the characters around Norman. Like, it should have a long time ago, but it's finally starting up, and I just love the way it all played out. And of course, we have Romero in this episode going through doing his stuff, and he's just getting closer and closer. And by the end, he actually ends up capturing Norman in a pretty interesting way too, because of course, the way things ended in the last episode, he kills Chick and he takes off. So we see him early on in the episode. He's in the car. This random dude's talking to him. He doesn't get busted by this guy. But while he's there, he actually sees a newspaper that shows that Norman's been arrested. So that's when he goes back to his old friend's house, and he takes off because he's like, he has to go back to basically his old job. So it was just crazy watching his story kind of unfold. And we see what happens with Chick, where they find his body in the house in this episode. And I mentioned they probably wouldn't do that, but they hadn't combed through the whole thing. I just assumed they did because they were already doing that. Or I thought they were, at least. But they find his body. They find a suitcase outside. They found like a little pin, which I do believe belonged to somebody. Like, as soon as I saw that pin, I was like, that reminds me of someone, but I don't remember. It was a while back. But they're going through. They're finding all this information and stuff. They don't really say what happens with Chick because, of course, they're gonna find out that that was someone else, and that's what has me really excited, because I'm like, well, they're gonna know that that wasn't Norman, because they'll be able to, basically be like, all right, well, he didn't die, 3 days ago. He died like last night. Like, he died less than 12 hours ago. They're gonna know that sort of stuff. That's kind of their job. So I'm really excited as to how in the world that's supposed to play out. And then it's like, well, if you have that going on, you also have the end of this episode, which really puts Romero in the forefront, because he goes in, puts a gun to the woman at the front desk, and then eventually that guy comes through the door, which I don't know what he was thinking. Like, I feel like I mentioned this before, I don't know what show it was, but it's like, you never draw on someone that already has their gun on you, because that's dumb. You're not, unless you're the Flash, you don't try to get your gun after someone's already pointed at you like this. That's just stupid. So of course he got shot in the arm. And it's like, alright, well, that kind of ramped things up. And he sends everyone to kind of get locked up with Norman. And I love this scene where he gets everyone in there. And he's like, alright, no, you're staying with me, because he kind of like needs another hostage. Or, at least someone to drive the car, we find out. But he's like, Norman, come out. And Norman's like, no, I'm going to stay put. And he's like, just push him out. And the guy instantly pushed him out. Like, I'm not about to get shot over you. You're a murderer. I'm not about to get shot because of you, kid. And he just pushes him out. And I just thought that was really funny. He was just like, okay. And it was like, I don't want to die today. Definitely not over a murderer. So by the end, Romero, of course, gets Norman. he has the desk clerk with him as well, so she's driving the car, which I thought was smart because at first he told Norman to get in the back and she's in the driver's side seat or in the passenger seat, and I'm like, he's gonna drive? That's a really bad idea. Like Norman could just like choke him from behind, they team up on him or something, but then he gets into the back seat with Norman and then he has her drive. I was like, okay, that actually makes sense because otherwise you got two people who don't want to be with you, they're gonna stop you. So I was like, all right, at least he was smart about it. So who knows what's gonna happen in this finale? I had a great trailer for it. The way the episode ends, it was just like it just cuts and then it goes to like this long promo for the final episode and just the insanity of it. And I'm really looking forward to this next episode. We had some great moments in this. Emma going to the funeral home I thought was great. Like that whole portion I thought was really good for this episode. And she meets with the brother and sister, which I don't know if I remember this wrong or not, but I could have sworn, and I don't know why this even pops in my head, but I thought the sister didn't want to be a part of that or something like that. I don't know why that pops into my head. Maybe that was a totally different show. But for some reason, I feel like I remember them saying that, because the dad wasn't there, and I was like, is their father dead? Because I remember it was the son and the father for sure, but it was the son and his sister in this episode. I was like, did their dad die? Like, it was just something random where I was like, for some reason I remember that. I forget the biggest plot points, but I remember for some reason that the sister didn't really want to be involved. And I could be wrong about that. I don't know. But I really love that portion where Emma goes to them and it's like, I didn't really know my mother like that. And, like the only thing that's like, is this really your mom? She's like, yeah, but, she kind of gave birth. I didn't really know her like that. And she belonged to like the church of herself and stuff like that. And she's like, did you guys do Norma Bates' funeral? She was more of a mother to me than my own mother. And she asked to see, or she asked if she's buried there. And so she actually goes to her gravestone and everything. And I was like, this is actually a great scene. And she's upset about just everything that's happened, going from the beginning of this series where she was in, like, from the first episode we had Emma. And I just love that transition of that character. And it was like, she just felt so crappy for everything that played out and just how crazy Norma has become, and not only losing her mother but dealing with everything that Norman has done and possibly killing his own mother, and just all that insanity kind of rolled up into one little scene. I was like, this is a really great moment. So I love that scene. I love the part where they are in court and Dylan leaves after they mention that Emma's mother is dead. So he gets up. Of course, everyone tries to look and it's like, crap, his brother abandoned him, so that doesn't look great. And then Madeline talks to him and is like, he tricked me for a couple of weeks or something, but you've known him for years. How did he trick you your entire life? And it was just interesting. Like, he's kind of just stuck there, and she's like, you knew, and you're gonna have to live with that. And he's just stuck because he is trying to save his brother. Where it's like, I'm pretty sure he's killed people, but he's still my brother. And they even reference that. Like, even the lawyer's like, it sucks to be family sometimes, but you got to be there to support him so that he can kind of get off on this insanity plea, which definitely makes the most sense. I was surprised that Norman, like, his mother was even able to allow that, because I thought for sure there was going to be something like, I'm not crazy and all this extra stuff. But it was like, no, that just makes sense because everything else is falling apart. So, crazy episode. Leading into the finale, a lot of emotion, and then it was like pretty much all emotion until the ending when Romero actually got to the police station, and then it just really ramped up because it was all reflective emotions from Dylan and Emma kind of getting that what small sense of closure she could get of visiting Norma's gravesite. So it was all about emotions and being tricked by this guy who seemed normal, and then he lost his mind and he's killed random people. And it was just all emotion, and it was just like, man, how is this going to play out? How are these people going to be affected for, like the rest of their lives? And then Romero, like, his whole goal is just, I want to kill Norman Bates. So, I don't know. I don't, it's really hard to say. Honestly, it is nearly impossible to say if Norman will really die or, what the heck they're going to end up doing. It's just like, I really don't know. So, I am certainly looking forward to this series finale. Sucks that it's ending after 5 seasons. 5 crazy, really fun seasons. It's ending. But really looking forward to next week's episode. Of course, I would love to know what you guys thought about this episode. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And obviously, I want to know what you guys think is going to happen in the series finale. I mean, we have Romero capturing Norman, which is how the episode is going to start, and that's kind of my main reasoning for believing that Norman is not going to die, because Romero is the only person that like completely wants to kill him. But in the promo, we do have a scene where Dylan has a gun, and I was like, I feel like this is where we get that moment that I kind of guessed early on, where I was like, I feel like someone might die because of Norman, and it won't be because he killed them. And I feel like Dylan might get in the crosshairs between Norman and Romero. And of course, I still really hope that doesn't happen. That would be a devastating way to end it. But it is Bates Motel, and I would not be shocked if they did. They saved that for the very end, and instead of Norman dying, it was actually Dylan. Or maybe Dylan and Romero both end up killing each other by accident, and Norman still manages to live on, and it's just more suffering, by the end of the series. But I don't know. Even like the worst outcomes fit perfectly for this show, and that's what scares me the most. So I don't know. I hope no one. Like it's a crazy thing. But if anyone has to die, I would say I hope it's Norman. He is actually technically the villain of the series, even as the protagonist. But I don't know. I mean, even the most devastating outcomes, like I said, make the most sense for this type of show. But we'd love to know your theories on where we're headed for this series finale, what you guys want to see, versus what you guys think might actually end up happening. We'd love to know that, and of course, I want to know what you guys thought about this episode as well. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.